Hi, this is Rose Colombo, and I'm here to tell you there is no justice. I will be showing you some clips from my former cable television show, Issues of the Day, which was also heard on radio, on KIEV, KGER, KORG, KYMS, and KWNK. I was fortunate enough to interview a great man, a man of integrity. Actually, I wish he'd run for president. He's an author, he's an attorney, and he's a Nebraska State Senator, John DeCamp. His book is called The Franklin Cover-Up. Back in the mid-90s, I interviewed him about what he said involved child abuse. It involved wealthy men from around the world, starting in Nebraska. It involved the newspaper. It involved the district attorney's office. And it led not only from Nebraska around the world, but to the steps of the White House. It's shocking. It involves child protective services and how they did not protect the children in these instances. 2 children ended up going to jail for telling the truth. So stand by, watch these clips, and share them with everyone. And remember, Rose Colombo says, there is no justice.
Communism, he says, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, couldn't really sleep. He says, so I decided, what the heck, I'd just go for a walk. He said, I was kind of thinking about the momentous events I was participating in. He says, of course, it was forbidden for anybody to be wandering around the middle of Red Square in the middle of the night. He says, but I just decided, what the heck, I'd walk out and see what happened, see when the guards stop me. He says, so I walk down the hall. Guards know who I am. They ignore me. He says, I walk down to the lobby of the hotel. They don't pay any attention. He says, I walk right out into the middle of the Red Square, right up to the Tomb of Lenin, right over to the doors of the Kremlin itself. The guards are ignoring me. And he said, and then it struck me. I said, well, what struck you? He says, that it was over. That it was over. The Cold War was over. Russia was defeated. He said, we had beat his exact words, we had beat the bastards. He said, after 30 years of dedicating my life to fighting communism, mostly in the Cold War, we had won. And he said, and then something else struck me.
And what was that?
He said, that was that this walk in the absolute middle of the night, in the middle of Red Square, with absolutely nobody caring or paying attention, was the only victory parade I and all the other people in the Cold War were ever going to have. We weren't going to have the ticker tapes down Madison Avenue or anything like that. He said it was going to be my private victory parade. And I said, well, Bill, that's all a wonderful story, but what the heck does it have to do with what? He says, well, what I guess I'm trying to tell you is sometimes there are forces too powerful and too evil and too controlled for us as individuals maybe to correct them or solve the problem in the time frame and in the manner we'd want. And he says, you're up against them right now. You're on
with the Franklin cover-up.
With the Franklin thing. He says, but we have to keep fighting. We have to do what we can. And in the long term, hopefully, we can make some difference. Them. I said, it is the truth, and I don't like you calling me a liar. So they said, go jump in a lake. And I said, no, I'm suing you. And I did. And within 3 weeks, they contacted me and said, okay, we've done our checking. And we reached a settlement where they paid me damages, which we agreed wouldn't be disclosed. And then 3 nights in a row on the evening news and the morning news, they had a public apology to the senator from Nebraska and acknowledged that they were the ones in error, not me. So that's been the only lawsuit thus far. But since the book came out, there have been what I call the many miracles, one after another, that validate or prove one point or another. But there's also been much stronger evidence of just how powerful some of the cover-up activity is.
Yes, and there's probably been a lot of pain and suffering and harassment through all this, not just for the victims, but for yourself, too.
Yeah.
Because this is not something that people can take lightly. When people discover injustices, they do one of 2 things, in my opinion. They either walk away, or they stand up with integrity and courage and get on the front line with their life and their family's life at stake, and they fight back. And once you start to expose, there has to be some powerful people that don't like what you're doing.
Let me give you a sample of how powerful. If you will go back and look at all the TV guides for the United States of America for, I think it's May 3rd or May 4th, maybe 1993 or 4, whenever the year was, a British TV station that does the programs for something called Discovery Channel. Anyway, they were contracted to do a story on this after they read the book. They spent about $500,000 putting together a thing called Conspiracy of Silence, in which they documented the book and went way beyond. In fact, one of the key institutions in the book, Boys Town,
Right.
Boys Town of Nebraska, probably one of the greatest institutions in America in terms of some of the wonderful things it's done, but which in this case had been corrupted in certain areas, and the children from there, some of the children have been used as victims by
Pedophiles.
and even by some of the priests. That was the focus of this special Discovery Channel program that this British television company that does these things for Discovery Channel had done. Even though you will see, if you go back and look in your TV guides, this program advertised for this particular date all across the United States, I will tell you something else.
What's that?
It never ever showed. The
I
last
believe
minute,
that.
it was kept off. A pirated copy of that, and who knows, it may make it onto the internet or somewhere one of these days.
Well, you never know.
Senior Hupp. Monsignor Hupp, after the book came out, called and sought a personal appointment with me, and he insisted that I bring witnesses, and he was bringing witnesses. My belief was we were going to have a confrontation, and he was going to try to discredit me in the book, and so on and so forth. To my absolute, utter shock, amazement, stunning, the Monsignor sat down. He said, "John DeCamp, I admire your courage, number one." He says, "Number two, you told the game, I'll help with the names." And from there on, he became my best supporter in terms of trying to get the story told, expose some horrible things that even I was stunned with. He had been to the bishop and been rebuffed earlier. As he said, a lot of this he suspected was going on, tried to get some things done about it, but he says, I will admit I was like the wife who's the last to know, or whatever. Anyway, shortly thereafter, he was forced to leave Boys Town. That was a national story at the time, and of course he's no longer there. He lives in retirement now. But it's like I say, the mini miracle. Some of the least likely people come forward finally when they have an indication that somebody's ready to do something. They will step into the breach.
Senator,
Here's
God
a man.
works in mysterious ways. God bless him.
Anyway, here was a man, the Monsignor Hupp, who appointed by the president, delegate to the United Nations, written 2 best-selling books, probably one of America's most notable individuals as head of Boys Town, and yet he was the one coming forward and helping me after the book came back out and trying to force some action.
The story. Why don't you tell us about Alicia Jean Owen?
Alicia Owen is a little girl, not so little anymore. It's been, 7-8 years over this period of time. She's in prison.
Why?
She's 20, 24, 25 now. She was the one who wouldn't back down and was identifying one after another individuals where she had been at parties. She had claimed that, yes, she was a drug courier, as I say, the whole works, and she claimed that the police chief of Omaha at the time, a man named Robert Wadman, she claimed, as is clearly documented with records and everything else in the book, that she was his little toy from the age of about, 13, 14. And when she wouldn't back down in her story, and by the way, she didn't go out trying to push her story on anybody. She was contacted by this investigator, Caradori, and he said, "We've already identified and have a lot of the information. Unless you tell us the truth of what happened, you're subject to felony charges for covering up." So she poured out her whole story, underwent polygraph examinations and everything else. Other kids came and supported and verified, as I say. But when all was said and done, she was charged with lying before the grand jury for having told the story. She then had about a 30-day trial. I guess you'd call it a trial. I use the word loosely. Was convicted of perjury, sentenced to jail, prison.